Okay, we're here this morning to give you an idea of how the course will close out. So this course recap is for Cons 3180, surveying. Cons 3180, construction, surveying, and layout. Okay, as you have noticed, since we've been robbed of our opportunity to play out in the field, I had to reallocate some percentages. So if you go to Canvas and look at the grades or the assignment tab, you're going to see the allocation, or the syllabus tab, any of those will give you the allocation percentage-wise of how your grade is figured. Hopefully it works. I tried to be as fair as possible. I think it does work. So you've been doing lab assignments instead of lab exercises for about 4 or 5 times. Not the way I hoped it would be. I'd rather have you have field experience, but the conditions didn't allow that. So your final grade then has going to be computed based on several things. One is your 2 tests. So we've got tests. We've got 2 of those. Both of them were online. Okay, so you've got the scores for those 2. The scores entered into Canvas are already curved, so we've curved those. We've got the field. We did some of them. We did several field/reports. So you should have some grades for those. We did pacing, we did measuring, we did a bench circuit, we did several other, we did a couple in-class coordinate problem type things. So you should have grades for those based on your group. So those are all group grades. And then we had the 5 lab exercises. 5 lab exercises or assignments. So we had 5 of the group grades, and we had 5 of the field, 5 for the field exercises and reports, and then we had 5 for the individual assignments. So for these, you should have 1 grade per student. For these, you should have 1 grade per group. So make sure they're filled in properly. Make sure everything looks good. It's what you think it should be. Hopefully it is. And by the time we get to the final exam, all of those numbers should be posted and should be correct. And I'll post, you make sure they're correct. Okay, I think they are, but I've made mistakes before. And I don't want to slight you on anything that you've accomplished. So all we've got left then is the final exam. Final exams with 25% of your grade. It's going to be online, of course. Final exam is going to be held online with a date of final exam. According to what I've got, it is on Thursday, May 14th. 2020. I will be releasing the final exam at 11:30 a.m. Okay. The final exam period is given up till 2 p.m. So the postmark time will be 2:00 p.m. Okay, so theoretically you have until 1:45 p.m. to work on the exam with a 15-minute window for you to prepare and submit the exam into Canvas. Unfortunately, I need you to do that on time. We've had students battle this. The playing field has to be fair for everybody, okay? If I give extra time to one person, the only way I can possibly do that is if the people at with the IEP direct me to do it with written, documented forms. So I don't have that ability, okay? So 2 o'clock, you can see what we have is we've got 2 hours and 15 minutes. That test is going to be designed to be about an hour and 45 minutes is what I'm designing it for. You have 2 hours and 15 minutes to complete it. So I think you'll have more than enough time. Okay, you know the protocol, how to get it back to me. Once again, I would appreciate that if you did it in numerical order, so I don't have to fumble around and try to figure out that 1 doesn't come, or 2 doesn't come after 1. Okay, 2 is after 7. I did that many times already. It's a pain in the rear end. So please, make sure they're in numerical order. So you got 25% of your grade remaining as of this point. The 25% will be administered on May 14th, Thursday. The release time on Canvas will be 11:30 a.m. The latest time you can return it, the postmark at 2 p.m. Okay, the material on that exam, okay, is going to be basically the material you had on the 2 tests. Okay, so you're going to get a score. And that score, we said, is the last portion of your final grade. So when we get done, I'm going to take this. These will be posted in Canvas, and you're going to have a course grade. And that course grade is going to be over in that last column, and it's going to be some numerical value. Okay, since we've got ourselves in a position where we've curved both of your tests and your final, the curve is going to be, and those were curved at 75%. The course curve will probably be 76, 77, 78%. Okay? So there won't be any need for me to alter the curve for the course. If there is, if I see there's a disparity, which there normally isn't, I'll probably take care of it by memo, giving you an announcement telling you that because the curve for the course was a little lower than I'd hoped, we're going to add a little bit to your score. But other than that, if you go to Canvas and you look at that last row for course, you're going to see a number there. And all I do, simple, I go to the syllabi, I grab the scale for the course. And this is what I'm going to do this semester. 100 to 90. 89.95 is going to be an A, 89.94 down to 79.95 is going to be a B, 79.94 down to 69.95 is a C, 69.94 down to 59.95 is going to be a D, 59.94 and below is an F. So, you know, we're down to the hundreds. So what if you get a 89.93? There's nothing magical about this. It's below that, you're going to get a B. You're going to email me and say, well, I'm only 0.02 of a point from getting an A. That was your decision. There's no way I can accommodate everybody's wish. And if I keep moving okay, this semester I'll make this 9.3, next semester 9.2, all of a sudden if you get a 50, you got an A. I can't do that. There's got to be a line of demarcation, and that is the number. So when you take the test, make sure you put yourself in a position where you're not at the fringe. Okay? Get enough points. Study hard enough, prepare yourself well enough so that when you get done, you're not lingering on the fringe and end up on the bottom side of where you wanted to be. There's nothing I'm going to do about it. So there's no use you emailing me or talking to me about it. This is the scale I'm going to be using. So when you look at here, come wander over to the scale, figure out where you're at, and that should be the grade that you get on the from the Bureau Stars office for your records. So the only thing I have left now is to try to get yourself in a position where you understand what that test is going to entail. I said it's basically material covered on the first 2 exams, okay? So I'm going to go through a little checklist, and then I'm going to go through an exam and show you what has happened in the past. So if I look at my little checklist here, probably according to what I've looked at, and I looked at several other ones, you've got about 8 to 10 problems total for the final exam. Okay, and if we look at test number 1, you had a bunch of conversions. Degrees, minutes, seconds to degree, 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 minutes, seconds. Feet, inch, and fractions to feet and decimal of a foot. You have all of those types of conversions back and forth. You had azimuths and bearing. Interior angle or an angle. I give you an azimuth, you find a bearing. I give you a bearing, you get the azimuth. I give you a closed traverse, and you, with the interior angles, figure out the azimuths or bearing based on interior angles and a given direction of one of the lines. Okay, so you got that to worry about. We had taping, so you got to worry about the corrections for taping. We had a bench circuit. You ought to be able to fill in the table. You ought to be able to reduce the table, which means fill in the HIs and the elevations. You get to the end, you ought to be able to do a mathematical check. Okay, so that's tape corrections. Then we moved into the traverse. And on test 1, we just did a little bit on traverses. Okay, you just took test 2 last week. So test 2 picked up with traverses. And that's, here we were dealing with latitudes and departures. Here we balanced latitudes and departures. Once we got them balanced, which meant they added up to 0, we were able to find coordinates. Once we got coordinates, we were able to find area. So you ought to be able to do that. Then we moved on to horizontal curves. And in horizontal curves, you have the parts and you have the layout. The parts are the tangent, the middle ordinate, the external, the long chord, the length, and that sort of thing. The layout is the deflection angle and the long or short chord to put the stakes in the ground. So you ought to be able to handle that. Then we moved on to vertical curve. And the vertical curve, you ought to be able to find the gradient elevations and the curve elevations. You ought to be able to find the high or low point. You ought to be able to handle the stations. Beginning, end, high point, low point, full, half, quarter stations. Full is 100 feet, half is 50 feet, quarter is 25 feet. So I'd be able to do that, and associated with this, you ought to be able to handle cut fill stakes. And then, so I've got vertical curve, horizontal level circuit. We did volumes and areas. You ought to be able to use the end area. And you ought to be able to do just math. Common shapes, circles, triangles, rectangles, squares, that sort of thing. You ought to be able to, and we had this over here, I believe. Here we had coordinates. You ought to be able to know what a coordinate is, how to figure the length of the line that connects a couple of coordinates in the direction. And then we have the lot layout. the big box or the position of the corners of the structure or whatever it takes. So those are the topics that we played with throughout the semester. And now I'm going to run through a test. This test was a couple years ago given. And if you look at it, I'm going to go through it basically and tell you what was on this test. Okay, one was coordinates. Two was cut fill. Ooh, I forgot that. Excuse me. I got cut fill. Let me put him right here. Oh, that's basically an end area method, so I'll just put it right next to there. It was this one. It's this guy right here. Oh, that was a pretty quick hitter, so you ought to be able to get that pretty fast. The next one was a level circuit. The next one was traverse and azimuths and bearings. So that was tied together. You had to take a little figure, find the azimuths of the lines, and then change the lines into latitudes and departures. Okay, that was that one. Next one was a taping problem. Next one was a horizontal curve problem. Next one was a vertical curve problem. Next one was a cut fill stake. And the next one was a combination of those two. Take latitudes and departures that have been adjusted, turn them into coordinates, and then take the coordinates and determine the area associated with those coordinates. So that's pretty much it, and this has a total of 9 on it, so I double dipped a couple, so we should have 10 or 11 marks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10. Okay. We did quite a bit of this on the last test number 2. I gave you that and told you about that before you took the test. So I doubt very seriously if you'll see much about that on the final exam. I think we beat that horse to death.